Hubbs Creek is a family-run vineyard in Prince Edward County, located in the township of Hillier, just 2 hours east of Toronto. The county is one of Canada's newest grape-growing regions, famous for its lime-rich soils which are ideal for growing grape varieties such as Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. With a total of 5 acres under vine, Hubbs Creek Vineyard is located approximately 2 kilometers north of Lake Ontario. The soil is stony and calcareous and is locally known as Hillier clay loam, with a high lime content making it ideal for producing fine wines. Beneath the soil is fragmented limestone bedrock, providing further complexity to the wines of the county. Hubbs Creek Winery is open for tastings by appointment and by chance.
My name is Jay Whiteley. I'll be having a chat with Battista about his particular 2016 Chardonnay, and we'll be talking specifically about it and more broadly about oak and the county in general. So, again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box during the conversation. We'll leave the last few minutes open for anyone that has any specific question. We'll have a broad Q&A period at the end of it. But during that, if something comes up and you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll answer them. And then at the end, we'll have some special guests come in. So, Battista, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too. I'm happy to see some familiar faces, that's for sure. I think this idea of using Zoom for allowing us as a wine community to be together, I think it's a great idea. Jay, I'll speak in behalf of Lee and Ryan. We thank you for setting this up for us.
Certainly, this was all Lee's idea, and now it's in the world, and we thank him for that.
I will start off by, I'm quite certain a lot of the people who are on the chat on the Zoom today know that Hubbs Creek has been around since 2000 to 2002. Our first planting went in 2002. It was a high density planting and it was strictly Pinot Noir at the time. When we started, there was really no one to turn to for help. So it really was exploring, like taking a ship across the sea and not knowing where you're going to land type of thing. So it was really an interesting time period. First planting was 2.5 at 5 feet by 3 feet, 4 feet, something like that.
Okay.
5.5 by 4 feet.
Okay.
Various different clones. They were 777, 667, 115. God, I can't remember them all. There were about 4 or 5 different clones of Pinot went in. Okay. And that was our philosophy, is to have multiple clones of not only Pinot, but even in the Chardonnay. Mm-hmm. Right. And then 2 years later, we planted what we called the Long Rose, which was more Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris. And then about 5 or 7 years ago, Lee might remember more than me, we planted the Chardonnay block, which is to the right of the building. And then behind the building is another acre that came on with more Pinot Gris and Pinot Noir. So I really like the taste of the Pinot families in Prince Edward County. So I'm a strong advocate of Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and Chardonnay, those particular grapes.
And what makes them so likable there for you?
The most important thing for me is the phenolic ripeness. They always ripen. So even on the coldest years we've had since 2002, I've never had a wine, especially in a red, where they are not ripe, where there's no green, all green stemmy flavors are not there. It's just, you can taste, especially in the Pinot Noirs and the Chard, that the wine is made from fully ripened grapes. And that's why I feel that we should be planting those particular varieties in Prince Edward County.
And you also have something else planted in your vineyard.
Yes, that's because of my Italian heritage. We have 1.5 rows of Tochetto, which grows in northern Italy, further up the mountains, where it's a bit colder and the growing season is shorter. But the downside of that grape, it tends to bud 2 weeks earlier, so I tend to lose it often due to frost. But this year, it will ripen. Hopefully, will ripen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Tochetto, for those who don't know, is the Holy Trinity, one of the three grapes of Piedmont, one of the three main grapes rather of Piedmont. There's multiple indigenous native grapes there, but a little sweet one, right? They used to really eat it as a table grape.
Yeah, because it actually has large clusters, very large clusters, loose clusters. They're loose. The berries are loose, and it's wonderful on its own. You could use it, like you said, as a table wine, a table grape, and make it into a fun wine, high fruit content type of wine. It tends to be low in tannin, but high in acids. So it's just fun grape for me to plant, and both Lee and Ryan seem to have a little love for that particular row or two that we have planted.
Yeah, that's good. Have you ever done like a mono varietal, mono bottling of it?
Yes, I have, and it always went to my Uncle Sam because he loved it. It just reminds him when he grew up in Italy. He's outside of Naples.
Okay.
So we used to give it to him all the time. We'd make a wine, and he'd take a couple of Damijohns with him. So he was quite happy with that. So
of course.
So and we never really sold it. It was just strictly was a family wine. It was a fun project for the family.
Good.
Right.
So how did you get into it? How did you come to the county in 2002?
When I was working at UFT, University of Toronto, I took courses to learn to read, write Italian, because basically I'm a generation and a half Canadian. So I decided to learn the language. And while I was in Italy, you can't help but drink wine and eat good food. And there was this one particular farmer, when I'd ride back from school on the bicycle, he would always drag me into his field. And the next thing I'm knowing, I'm tying canes using willow branches. And it was interesting. He would have these willow branches, those long willow branches, and he would soak them in a long pipe with water and they become malleable. Instead of using twist ties, he cut it and twisted it in a particular way. And then it would become rock hard after it would dry. It would turn brown and you'd have to use snips to cut it. So it was amazing. It was really amazing.
And where was that?
So when I thought to myself, when I go back to Canada, I'll do that as a living, but it's not so easy here because of politics and growing conditions.
Yeah. It is difficult, isn't it? Like growing grapes in general, not to mention here in the county, just adds an extra layer of difficulty.
Yes, absolutely. It is difficult, as we know why, because tax reasons and many reasons. We're growing as a wine culture, and I think we will get there. Mm-hmm. And accessibility, as I mentioned before, I'm a strong believer in like a VQA wine store where you could set up a VQA store, buy Pinots from all over the county and then do tastings side by side and see how they vary in flavor profile. Same grape, but they'll vary. Like even 50 meters in a let's say a wide vineyard or big vineyard, 50 meters from one end to another might make a huge difference in taste profile. Mm-hmm. So I think that you can't really get that. So Wendy, for example, she needs to buy a bottle from all the different wineries in order for her to do a tasting. Rather, wouldn't it be great if Wendy Dunning could go to the particular VQA store, have a flight of all these different Chardonnays or Pinot Noirs, and then say, wow, I like this character, that character, and so on.
And how much that is growing condition and how much is that is winemaking?
Growing conditions means our yields are a lot lower. It's just maybe because of berry, maybe the fabric will change that. Mm-hmm. So we're averaging, on average, most vineyards, let's say Pinot, what's a lower yielding grape, between 1.5 tons, good year, you'll probably get 2 tons per acre.
Mhm.
Rather in Niagara, you could push it 3, 4 tons per acre if need be. The downside of high output is I feel you'll lose some of that flavor profile. So in a way, that low yield, I feel makes sure that the grapes are fully ripened and you get those beautiful flavors that the vine can focus on while you're growing it or taking care of it. I'm a strong believer that wine is grown. It's not just the winemaker, but truly is the vineyard grower, and the vineyard itself makes the wine.
But it is, I mean, a winemaker is very important too. The wines, the grapes just don't turn into wine by themselves. There's many little decisions along the way
That's
until
correct.
it gets into the bottle. So,
So exactly. So 2016 Chardonnay, this one here, the Profumo del Leño, was a really, really hot year. And most of the time, I think the county is quite cool. And I focus more on a Chablis style, more fruit forward type of wine. But 16 was one of those years that was hot and the fruit was so ripe, it almost turned like, that deep golden color, which tells me, wow, you can make one that's fully oaked. So that year I used about half of the wines. So basically half of the quantity went into brand new French oak and the other half went into neutral barrels. And then the half really imparted some of the beautiful essence of oak without being buried, because the fruit can stand up to that type of wood. And so that's how often the use of oak is determined by the vintage. So depending on the vintage, like 17, for example, for Pinot, start off poorly, but the season was so long that your skin stayed thick and full of intense flavors, allowing me to put in more wood, more new wood into the actual winemaking that particular year. So we feel, and I think Ryan and Lee will also probably feel the same, that vintage can vary, make a difference on how much wood and the type of wood you use, right?
very much, very much. So, in terms of the 16, you said French oak, and what size What size were the
They were
barrels?
225s,
225 barrels.
228s, 225s.
And so that was fermented in there, or was it?
Yes, fermented and in the barrel for 9 months, I think it was, for quite a long time. But it's critical for me, and that if you're using brand new oak, to ferment in that wood. I feel that somehow the fermentation process maybe changes some of the flavor of the wood coming into the wine.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It may act as a buffer that not too much oak goes into the wine. That I'm not sure about. We have to ask Lee. He probably know more about that than me.
Certainly, two great experts there to field that question too, as at the end. So, and the other 50% you said was in stainless steel.
Yes.
Fermented.
Linda was saying she thinks there's not a lot of oak. This particular wine is not oaky per se, in the way that you taste oak. What you're smelling is the influence, like that vanilla, that butterscotch effect. That's what I mean by oak, right? So if oaky means literally woody, to me, kind of like that woody characteristics. You're not getting that in this particular wine. You're getting the wood, the effects of the wood, and you're also getting the real, because of the year and the use of the wood, a much more full palate. It's full on the palate also. Mm-hmm. And it goes very well with my Crotonese cheese. So I can handle, and Crotonese cheese is like Parmigiano Reggiano, but it has more spice and more bite. So this particular wine can handle full cheeses. What else? And certain types of foods that are richer foods and richer cheeses. So I
like lobster.
Oh yeah,
yeah, lots of lobster and butter.
Exactly, tons of butter. Exactly.
Yeah, anything with butter, I think would go really.
Anything rich like duck, really. You know what I mean? Turkey, perfect.
The name of the wine, what does exactly that mean for you?
So Chardonnay 2000, Profumo del Leño. So what I meant is the perfume of wood. Just because when it was, as it was aging in wood, the essence of the wood was to like perfume to me. So I decided that we will call it Perfume of Wood. So it's just and it wasn't a lot of bottles. It was under 1,000 liters, just under 1,000 liters. And because of that, I said it's not worth to put the VQA label on it. Because after you pay $300 something to get the VQA, is it worth it? You know what I'm getting at? So, and then actually surprisingly selling well. I'm really, even though it's non-VQA, it is selling well. I'm not sure how much of it we have left, but I love this particular wine.
So you got, what, about 100 cases of that? Is that
I think that's what we started off at.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're at now, but about 100 cases what we started off at.
About 100 cases. Well, it's fantastic. It's a lovely Chardonnay for you.
Thank you.
And what other? Sorry.
Go on.
No, what other wines have you got available for purchase now at this point?
So I will be the 2017 Pinot, and I will also be having. It's been bottled, and in a few weeks we will start to sell it through Shopify, and it will be the Reserve Pinot Noir. Okay. So the Reserve Pinot Noir is similar to the Chardonnay Profumo del Leño, more use of brand new wood. I used 2 Italian barrels in that particular, in the Profumo, brand new. And I like the smokiness and the tobacco that it has with that, the tobacco and smoke that was imparted into the wine. And
the Italian barrels, were they oak or?
Brand new wood, Slovenian wood.
Slovenian oak.
Slightly sweeter.
Okay.
But again, there's an example of a vintage year for Pinot. And it was ideal for making our second Pinot Reserve. At Hubs Creek, we take the word reserve, the meaning reserve, seriously. Okay. So for a wine to be a reserve, the conditions have to be right. I could have called the Chardonnay a reserve. Fully ripened, no green stems, just rich wines. And right. So it's like a way of explaining or showing to what was a vintage year for Hubs Creek is when we put the word reserve on it. 2007 could have been a reserve. 2012 definitely was. I'm not sure 14 maybe, but 17 I was really proud of. It was a rough spring. Oh God, was it ever horrible.
Yeah.
It was like monsoon rains, but if you got over that, it was perfect growing conditions, even for the Chard. It wasn't too hot. It was cool, long growing conditions, ideal for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And the Pinot Gris loved it too. You know?
Pinot Gris, that's fantastic. And so that'll be your reserve Pinot coming out next to be released, rather.
Yeah, in the next release.
Okay, and had a little bit of oak in there as well, which you're liking to use. You like to use the oak?
Again, it's vintage driven. It's good idea to rotate 10 to 20% new wood every growing season into your vintage. But if there is more, I believe in using neutral barrel. Okay, so I'm saying is if you have a really great vintage, I like to use, if I have a great vintage or some other wineries have a great vintage, they may want to use more wood, maybe a 2-year-old wood or brand new wood. That's what I like to do. On a lighter year, we don't know what this year might be. You maybe use more definitely use neutral wood to help balance out the remainder of the wines. So our Pinots basically are always fully oaked. The Chardonnay, even our Chablis style Chardonnay goes into wood. It's fermented in wood, but once it finishes fermenting, it comes out.
Okay.
Okay, so it's lightly oak, but the effect of the oak really helps impart richness and flavor to the Chardonnays. So the question is, do I use oak? Definitely. It's, I think, a vital part of winemaking at the next level. I definitely need to use wood, you know.
And how did you get into winemaking?
I've always made wine, basically because of my dad. But then like I said, when I went to Italy, there were winemakers there, and they were telling me things, explaining, you know, how to grow grapes, well, what goes well in certain terroir. In fact, one of the most interesting lessons I got the last time I was there about 4 or 5 years ago was this one particular grower. He actually chooses rootstock before the actual clone. So he'll look at the side of a hill and say, this is the rootstock that does well there. So the way he selects what variety to plant, he looks at the rootstock before the actual clone. And I thought that was really interesting because the rootstock will tell him, you know, it will give what is necessary for the vine to grow in that particular vineyard or that particular terroir.
More importance on it.
On it.
As
And
opposed
I thought
to the
that
clone.
was interesting.
Yeah.
So,
And where was that?
that was in Tuscany, in Brunello region.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess rootstocks are very important. Well, I guess how many clones of Sangiovese are there? There's well over 70.
This is the so-called Super Sangiovese that he was growing.
Okay.
And there alone, there's many clones. I agree.
Right.
I didn't get into clones with him. I just drank his wine and that.
Well, yeah, when you're only able to grow one thing in a certain space, I guess it is important to consider rootstocks. Because here you've only got a few available, right?
And there's a few that I think we should look at beyond 3309.
Yeah.
I think 101-4 is promising. 41B, I think it's 41B. It's good for high pH soils. I think I would definitely look at those rootstocks. You know, which rootstocks that can handle drought conditions. Like I planted Rapiria, it works well, but I do notice in some areas of the vineyard under drought conditions, the vines are stunted. So now I'm thinking maybe I should have used 101-14, which is more drought resistant, or 41B, or is anybody's? Oh, Linda Morrison, your 17 was my favorite of the year. Oh, that's beautiful.
And so just Lee pointed out here that there's about 20 cases left. So if anybody is interested in more of this wine that we're drinking and hasn't got enough of it, there are still about 20 cases left.
Okay. Well, Lee, and I'll be honest with you, Lee and Ryan have been taking really good care of me. They're like, I call them my adopted Prince Edward County sons. And there's a reason for it. I'm happy to see young, talented winemakers such as those two. I really think a lot of Mackenzie also.
Mackenzie Brisbross at Trail Estate.
I just think she's wonderful. So we need to have. I'm one of the original winemakers. I'm in my early 60s. So the baton has to be moved on to younger winemakers such as Mackenzie, individuals like you, just to carry on, you know. And it's amazing, like Lee, for example, mentions, you know, he does make wines very similar to the way I do it, and that is more old world style type of winemaking. So,
and that's your reference point for wines. And who were some of the inspirations when you came to the county? Like, why did you decide in 2000 to come to the county, and who sort of helped you along?
So number one was I couldn't afford Niagara. Absolutely. Number one, it was too expensive.
Right.
And number two,
even 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago. Even 20 years ago, it was expensive.
Right.
So and I do remember driving through Hillier region, because a friend of mine has a place in Adolphustown.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was in Italy, I remember the stone and similar idea of the rocky clay type of stones. So then what I did was in 2001, I went to the county and I just drove through, and I was surprised to see vines planted already. And at that time, the vineyard that I saw that was planted was Mike Pedalston, which is Casadilla today.
Mm-hmm.
And the following year, Rose Hall Run planted.
Okay.
Right. And I thought, whoa, these guys must know something I don't. And then that's when I decided, let's buy some land and start growing grapes, growing wine. Actually, that's the way I look at it.
Right.
But I had no experience with growing grapes in Canada. You know what I mean? So I made a lot of mistakes. Right?
But you also you persevered and made some great wines. So what were some of the biggest mistakes that you were like just shaking your head at still today?
Okay, the biggest mistake, I wish I was not 5.5 feet wide, 6.5 feet wide.
Density.
The problem with, I'm a strong believer in vineyards that are narrow rows. My grandfather's vineyard in Italy, you could reach with 2 hands and touch poles,
mm-hmm.
but they don't have to bury. So
right.
if the rows are too narrow, you only have so much dirt you can hill up with.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm getting at? But
mm-hmm.
I still like the concept of high density.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in Italy, again in Tuscany, a lot of their vineyards are 2 meters by 1 meter and less. Actually, while I was there, they were experimenting with 25 centimeters between the vines. So they're a little bit wider. This particular grow is a little bit wider, but really, really close and pushing more smaller plants. The idea is to have smaller plants.
So
less fruit per plant type of thing. So there's still the idea of some medium high density one. Oops, somebody just bought some wine.
Oh, there you go.
I heard that bing sounds.
Yeah. Okay. And so what were some of the great things that you've done? What were, besides coming here? I mean, that was a great decision to come here. And there's some things that you look back and say, well, I'm glad I did it that way and not.
Well, I'm one of the things I'm happy about. I hope my wine colleagues don't look at me kind of funny is that I focused on 3 or 4 varieties only.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad enough learning to grow 2 varieties instead of 4 or 5. Remember, I didn't go to Niagara College or Brock, but the science background helps you understand balance. Balance in the vineyard or balance in the barrel type of thing.
Okay.
But when I started, I didn't have someone like Ryan Monkman that has a good science background in wines to talk to at the time. So there were a lot of us that we didn't know what we were doing. I felt that we didn't know what we were doing. So
who were some of the originals that planted in around that same time? Besides Casadilla and Dan at Rose Hall.
So Casadilla, Dan Sullivan's fantastic. I think highly of him too.
Right.
Then what's his name? Dan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Taylor planted up the street from us, which now is part of Kenty.
Okay.
And Dan Taylor was instrumental at pushing the county to become a wine growing region. Richard Johnson also, he advocated for the VQA, and there were a few really important people like them that really helped allow Prince Edward County to become a wine growing region. Mm-hmm. So I really thank Dan Taylor and Jeff Hendricks. I mean, those guys were visionaries when you think about it. Mm-hmm. They were also, I hate to say it, just like us, we're kind of green, even though we knew would work if we persisted, and it did. I felt that it does work. The only thing is the bearing of the canes and working around that. If the fabric idea works really well, then our yields will start to go up, and probably even our qualities, because there'll be less damage to the vines. Yeah, it's hard on the vines. You're leaving all the canes. We're doing a lot of head training, so all the vines are growing from the actual crown itself, which is, you can do that. There are places you can do that, but it would be nice if you could have like even a small trunk, like a small trunk, and do guyot system and type like they do with Super Sangiovese and Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in Europe. So
it's just not as cold, right? Like we have to
bear. Yeah, their springs could be just as nasty as ours. The only thing is they don't get down to minus 25 Celsius. That's the advantage. If we didn't do that, I think if we didn't get down to minus 25 Celsius, our soils are perfect for growing certain varieties. For me, I think they're ideal for growing Pinot and Chardonnay. And there's a good chance, is that it could be that Chardonnay might become the signature grape of Prince Edward County. I don't know if you heard, British Columbia is now saying that Pinot Noir might become their signature grape.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, they're considering that, eh?
Yeah. And I think we have to kind of promote a signature wine or signature grapes for the county to help us become more visible out there in Canada and perhaps even in the world.
So you think Chardonnay specifically and possibly Pinot?
I think those two. I think
Pinot Noir.
Chardonnay yields well.
Yeah.
It's also a good producer. Again, I'm still learning, So,
No, I what's that?
I wish I had someone to turn to when I first started, right? So,
right.
I would have planted more Chardonnay, right? So I would have planted equal amount of Chardonnay to Pinot, right?
Yeah, Chardonnay doesn't market very well, and it's not as it's sometimes people just find it oak. When I've been selling Chardonnay to restaurants, people would just say, "Forget, I'll drink anything but Chardonnay." There's still those people in the world, the ABC people, which boggles my mind, because to me it's the greatest grape in the world. It just makes the finest wines in the world. It makes the highest priced, most sought after wines in the world.
You mentioned something. One of the things I like to do is when people come in and they into the wine and they say ABC, anything but Chardonnay, I'll start off a tasting with the Pinot Gris, the Rosé, and then the Pinot Noir, and then I'll say to them, you know what? I have a wine that you should try. You should just give it a try. I won't tell them what it is. Do not tell them what it is. Then I'll pour a little bit of the Profumo de Leño, and they'll go, wow, this is great. What is this? Because they're not picking up raw oak like some of the earlier Australian wines. They love it. Then they'll wind up buying it. And the same thing in the Chablis, also the Chablis style Chardonnay sells very well because it is more fruit forward. And the same thing with the Chardonnays. If I find that they're not interested, I kind of say, this is on me, give this a try. And you'd be surprised how their bias will change if you do that, if you try that.
Yeah, I agree. Chardonnay had a bad rap there for the 80s, 90s, and except for the fine wine buyers. Burgundy has been around for hundreds of years, and people have always been drinking Meursaults and Cortons and just beautiful, beautiful wines. So you're doing a fine job here with these wines, that's for sure.
I gotta have a sip. Sorry.
Yeah, I hope everyone is drinking some of this. If you haven't opened already, please do. I mean, help yourself. Does anybody have any comments?
Proper glass is really, really, really critical. Like using the proper glass for a full-bodied wine like this Chardonnay, I think means everything, right? So those little sniffers, Gab, you want to give me a little sniffer over there? Yeah, those little sniffers are no, right? So I think all wineries should use and most of them are moving that way. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
not these, right? They're okay, but I just one of these guys, right? This is a lot better type of. This is my Pinot glass, but hey, it's still great.
So. So I got a question here. It says someone loved your Corian Bell said you loved the 60-40 from 2015.
Correct. So the 64 that is 60% Niagara and 40% Niagara. That was our frost year.
Mm-hmm.
That was a brutal year. That's when it was just we lost all our Pinot. So I also made a Pinot from Niagara at the time. Did not have the word VQA, Prince Edward County, Hubbs Creek estate grown, and so on. That was the year for it. But actually that 60-40 turned out to be a lovely wine too. And maybe that's because Chardonnay grows well everywhere in comparison to Pinot. See what I'm getting at? So I think Pinot has totally different characteristics, markedly different characteristics, I think, in Prince Edward County than it does in Niagara. I don't know if Lee would agree with that or not. I'm not sure. Hello? I think we lost our host, guys. Hello?
Well, then, that's it for him then. Just keep talking.
Okay, Linda, I'll keep talking. I guess I have no choice, right?
So you have a question.
Okay, what's the question?
What's your favorite part in winemaking?
The favorite part of winemaking is wine growing. That's my absolute favorite part, is actually watching the wine grow in the vineyard. It's the holy grail to me of winemaking, is actually watching it grow, right? And then as you're watching it grow, you learn to understand what that particular vine wants, what its needs are, what makes it happier, and so on, What other questions are they?
Battista, it's Ryan Monkman talking.
Yes, Ryan. Speak to me, Ryan.
All right.
My son.
I want to ask you a question that's going to pull you in a different direction a little bit.
Okay.
Because I've been trying to bug you about it for like a year and a half now.
Okay, what is it, Ryan?
When are you going to fix the clutch on your old tractor? And why?
I will. I know. I never had a chance. I was going to do it this winter. He's talking about my little white tractor that I use for cutting. Yeah. Hey, you know what, Ryan? You'll be doing it with me. How's that sound?
Tell me why you love it.
It's because it's great for pulling little trailer. It's like my my little Gator tractor. It's small. It's a utility tractor. You could hop on and go for a little trip or check out each vines. But it's just a good, versatile, little fun tractor to have.
You see, you're talking about the tractor, and I want to talk about you. I want to talk about the fact that this thing has been sitting with a broken clutch behind you.
2 years now. I know it has.
And what I love about it,
because I put all the emphasis in the vineyard, not in the tractor.
What I love about it is that you haven't given up hope on it.
No,
every couple of weeks you call me and you say, "Think about fixing this little tractor." It's not something you need, but it's something you love.
Okay.
It brings joy to your soul.
Go on, Linda.
I have a request of something that happens every time I walk into the winery. Can you please read us the proverb in Italian on the back of the bottle?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I can't see it. Oh, I'm losing my vision. Gabby, can you read this?
I play.
Oh, you know what? Lee, can you read it?
I cannot read it in Italian, no.
So, okay. So that's a good point. So when I was first made these wines, starting from my very first vintage, instead of writing on the back of the label, this wine pairs with this and that, I said, most of the people are going to be buying our wines, understand wines. So I decided, you know what? Italians have a lot of proverbs, and a lot of proverbs are related to wine. So every vintage, every bottle, except for the reserves, have a proverb at the back. And like I said, I can't see this. I need to get stronger glasses. Gabby, if you go downstairs, there's that little magnifying glass.
Do you want me to try it in my Manja accent?
Hold on. I
I
can't.
can read the English version.
Okay, read the English version, the Munja Cake version.
Or my
How's
mom
that?
can read it.
I heard Marianne's vision is just as bad as mine, so it doesn't matter.
Oh my God, it's so long. I have to wear my
Okay, wait a second. Gabriella's my daughter, so she's helping me out with Zoom.
Hello, Gabby.
Hey, Gab.
Hi.
So can you read that, Gabby?
The Italian version?
Yes. No, the English version.
Oh. The world is divided into those who eat chocolate without bread, those who cannot eat chocolate if they do not eat bread. Oh, sorry, even if they do not, sorry.
This is a bit
They
complicated.
do not even eat bread. Those who do not have chocolate, those who do not have bread. I don't know why that was so confusing and hard to read.
So basically, it's a saying in Italy: those who have and those who have not. It's difficult to translate. So some people are fortunate to have more than others. That's basically what it's about. Some people can eat just bread. Some people can eat bread and chocolate together, which means you have more than I know it doesn't have to do with wine.
That's the
Okay,
worst
there's
thing.
the odd one that does have to do with wine.
And we've been enjoying this with our first fresh bruschetta of the year.
Oh, you're okay. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I'm
You're
back
back.
here. Sorry, I lost for a minute here, but I have a question. Someone's asked, how many workers do you need to help with the vineyard every year?
Hold on for a second. My computer screen went to sleep there.
That's all right.
We need for our vineyard about 2 people in the vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
You need 2 people for 5 acres, because it is high density. You need 2 people, 2 workers in the vineyard, and with 2 workers in the vineyard, you could do with 1, but 2 workers in the vineyard is better, because then you could make sure that like the heads are cleaned properly, the pruning and so on, right? So 2 people is ideal. 1.5 to 2 people is what I think you need to have it, where the actual crown is cleaned properly and so on.
Yeah. It takes a while. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of grape growing is a lot of hand work.
Mm-hmm.
It's constant hand work. And then there's periods where you're thinning the fruit, plucking the leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't have a mechanical plucker, so just paring the leaves off the fruiting zone can take several weeks alone.
Can take a while.
So, yeah, there's a lot of this hand labor.
And has there been any trouble getting the foreign workers coming in this year?
So yes, it has been. In fact, ours just came in about 2 weeks ago, so
Okay.
it put us behind. This year has been difficult, but I should mention, you were talking about workers. When we first started 20 years ago, there weren't that many foreign workers at the time. And I think one of the things that allowed wine growing to happen in Prince Edward County is the aid of foreign workers. It's difficult to find Canadians or Europeans to do that type of work now. It's hard work. It just really is hard work, right? So we have hired university students in the past, and after a while they're tired of it, or they're smoking dope in the far end in the corner of the vineyard.
Yeah.
You
You got to get through that hard work somehow, I suppose.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. It's not easy. That's true. I don't know if anyone's been out and done any vineyard work or any commercial agriculture work for that matter.
So when I first started, we did the work ourselves, but that was only 2 acres, and that was a lot of work. And you'll see a friend, Robert Temkin, Bob Temkin, a friend of mine for this, I'd work these poor, they'd come for a visit and I'd put them to work in the vineyard. So they'd be working with me at the university, but then they come visit me on the weekends and I have them like, tying vines, and then poor Bob, who has a bad back, would say, "My back is killing me." Right? That was hilarious.
Well, it is. Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, the vines are trained so low that it's such a challenge to get down there. So
that's a good point too. Our vines are trained low, and we're not used to squatting. You know, if you could squat, that's ideal, right?
Squat and walk at the same time.
Yeah, like kind of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not hard. Sorry, I got cut out there. I mean, there's many great things about living in the county, but the internet is not one of them. So I got cut out there. Does anybody have any questions before we go on about the wine, about the winery, the county, Battista?
Oh, I would look. Adrian Berg asked what wine to look forward to.
Right.
I would definitely wait for the reserve and the Pinot Noir. I'm very happy with the 17 Pinot and the reserve.
Both 17?
Both the 17s. So right now I have what I call the regular 17 and the reserve. I think their 2017 was to me was a vintage year. Like a long growing season, cool. When it gets really, really hot, the skins almost melt on the Pinot Noir. Like they get super thin. You start to get a lot of VA in the vineyard. But 17 was clean. It was perfect. That's the year that a winemaker does nothing. You know, you throw it in the you throw it in the tank or in a fermentation bin if it's Pinot, and you just let it happen. And you just guide it along. And that's what I call wine growing. Right.
So yeah, I think people are answering. Lee's answering all the questions here. Good. Does anybody else have any specific questions about Battista?
Ava was asking me.
Oh yeah, what's your favorite?
I love that. Oh, she's saying that she loves the labels on the back. I'm looking at mine now. Lee Baker's complaining about the internet. Gary loves the Pinot Gris. I actually really think Pinot Gris has a home in the county.
Pinot Gris.
It has really strong. I love the acid forwardness of the Pinot Gris. I just think it's wonderful. And the wild ferment Pinot Gris, I have to give thanks to Lee Baker. He actually was his idea to use partial wood. So I had a barrel there. It was a neutral barrel, and we had the Pinot Gris went wild on it, and it went wild ferment. But the profile was fantastic. So Lee just grabbed a whole bunch of the wild ferment and threw it in the neutral barrel that had Pinot Gris, and then behold, it even added more body to the actual Pinot Gris itself. So the Pinot Gris wild ferment is beautiful. And there's an example of using neutral wood for the Pinot Gris. I don't know about full out oak or a lot of oak for Pinot Gris. I always say if the Alsatians like that, they would have done it after 2,000 years. You know what I'm saying? So just, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's another thing. Maybe going forward, more wild ferments, push more wild ferments. And even our Pinot Noirs are wild fermented to a degree. Like just let it happen. If you start to lose control, then you intervene. But a lot of it is just let it happen on its own.
And let it go, yeah.
And the other thing is Vitis vinifera. Why I like to grow Vitis vinifera is that you and I talked about this before, is that the acid and sugar and flavor profile are balanced by man. So what I'm saying is even when our acids get to, let's say, 9 or 10 grams per liter, it's still manageable. So on a perfect year, like 2017, your acids are 8 or 7, your bricks are 22, your flavor profile is so rich. There's nothing for you to do. It's perfect. It does it itself. Rather, like some other particular varieties, you might have, acids level at 22 grams per liter. That is hard to tame.
Right.
So that's why I'm still very partial to Vitis vinifera, the European variety, because of that. When the vineyard is well managed, your profiles are managed too. Your acids, your sugars, and so on. They're in harmony.
Despite how difficult it is to grow, it's the better species of grapes to grow.
And you always have a gorgeous mid palate. You know what I mean? That mid palate is there. You know what I mean? You have, and that's another thing in a finished wine. You have your nose, your taste, your mid palate, and your finish.
And quite frankly, no hybrids or any other grape varieties would be taken
I didn't want to
seriously.
say hybrids, but I think some of them are very good, like Marquette, but I think they need the assistance of maybe 10% Pinot in the wine. Like I haven't, you know what I mean? I think they're great. I think they're affordable, but I'm still not yet sold on them yet. 100, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
I get it. They're easy to grow and that.
Right.
But they'll
never be taken seriously by some parts of the wine community, perhaps.
I think they can make excellent port style wines. Port style wine, like some people are making excellent port wines from hybrids. But I'm more into still wines, right? Like a still wine, not so much high acid type of wines they can balance with sugars or sweetness as you get in ports.
Yeah, which are different. Brit's asked, what is your favorite thing to drink?
Pinot Noir.
Full stop.
Like, that's it. And Chardonnay too. And I love the Pinot. Okay, I like all well-made wines. Don't get me wrong.
From anywhere in the world, or are there specific producers or regions that you'll go to?
Oh God, all wines well made. I love. Like we talked. I don't know if you remember. We talked about Sauternes.
Right.
Like they're sweet, but my God, they're incredible, right? Or Brunellos or Barolos are great. All well-made wines I enjoy. But as a county wine or as a Canadian wine, my favorite is Pinot Noir.
Right. Okay.
That's what I choose. Right.
Pinot Noir from Canada.
Yeah, from
BC. BC's trying to market themselves now with Pinot Noir, but we'll see. We'll see, right?
Yeah, but at least they're trying. They're trying to have a focus, that's something I think it's important to have a focus. And a lot of wineries in Prince Edward County are trying to focus. I think I don't go to too many wineries. I just don't have the time when I'm there because they're so busy. But there is a lot of people are planting Pinot Noir, are planting Chardonnay. So that focus concept is there, I feel, right?
Good. And what about everyone here? Is there a grape variety that you feel is more applicable here? You'd like to see grown, maybe that's not grown here? Are there any? I know there's some people that have spoken about other grape varieties. Chenin Blanc could be one.
Lee was talking about a particular Eastern European grape that might be more cold-hearted, more cold resistant.
From Georgia, yeah, the Rexatelli.
Yeah, from Georgia, I think that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying we should stop at. Ava asked, she said, I've been and continued to be impressed with. So Ava Nagy is impressed with Prince Edward County. Maybe because maybe we are focusing more. I don't know. We'd have to ask our customers. I find that there are wine lovers, when they come into the winery, they have a specific wine they're interested in. It would be the Chard or the Pinot. But people that are new to wine appreciation, they'll ask for everything. So they'll ask me, do you have Cabernet Sauvignon? Do you have a deeper, like a big full body red? And I try to explain to them, we do not. The reason we don't have it is I feel it doesn't grow here, right? So I believe in making a wine that grows well in Prince Edward County. That really is a reflection of our of the terroir and the 100-mile diet and so on.
Yeah, it's important.
Can you imagine, you have asparagus, you have fresh asparagus from Prince Edward County. Wouldn't it be great to pair that with a Pinot Gris or Rosé or something from Prince Edward County? It brings more value to the county also,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
One-stop shopping, right? Type of thing.
Yeah. No, it's great. I saw signs for asparagus today, so it was.
Go for it,
Yeah.
And it's delicious from the county. Asparagus is great.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
So are the cauliflowers and so on, right?
And so is the wine, actually.
Yeah.
So we're doing pretty well here in the county, actually. We can quarantine here for a long time. I'm going to bring in a few extra special people here, and where did he go here? Okay.
Oh, Gary Leanlin's worried that I'm going to leave too soon. I'm not leaving, Gary. Don't worry. It's okay.
Well, I'm trying to. There's Ryan. All right.
Bubbles there.
I'm going to try and bring in Mr. Baker as well. There he is.
There he is.
But you got the hat and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, those glasses too. He's Mr. Cool.
His face is immortalized on the label now.
Oh God, yeah. Somebody had released a label that kind of looks like him. Did you see the doggy one? Did you see that label?
Yeah.
That post?
Sean Cozy, yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Kind of looks like him. It was great. Well, good to see you guys. I haven't seen Ryan for a couple weeks, and I saw Lee last week, so good to see you both again.
Good to see you, Jay.
Good to see you, Jay.
Pleasure.
Good to see you, Battista.
Good to see you too.
You know what, Lee? I got to be honest. It's kind of shitty to see you.
If Lee can do it, I can do it. What the
Watch
hell?
language, holy.
I didn't
Yeah.
have a good time.
You know what? I'm comforted
I'm gonna do the
because to
tie
be on
thing,
this
I
call,
decided not to. Then
I'm
everybody
comforted.
thinks I'm following him.
To be on the call, you have to be age of majority.
Out of your loading dock there?
Oh, you're looking at the loading dock?
No, it's because I stole 3 bags of chicken shit out of his loading dock earlier.
Oh. So what he's talking about, Lee Baker's talking about adding nutrients to the vineyard, and and it's a great idea to you got to put it, what you take out, you got to put back in. And both Lee and Ryan use this pelletized. I found out it's actually chicken feathers. Did you know that?
Not the one I use.
It's pelletized. So
Yeah.
it's the nutrients that, in my case, they're getting from chicken feathers, and puts the nitrogen right back into the ground, and a few other nutrients that goes with it.
So because we're going for biodynamic certification, we're really limited in what we can use. So we have to use it. For us, it is a pelletized chicken manure from organic chickens, and in what must be the worst smelling factory in the world, they pelletize it. So it releases over the span of about 6 months. And the idea is it does 2 things. It does slowly release nutrient into the soil, some nitrogen, but it also acts to build up it works to build the texture of the soil. So if you go you can feel soil that's dead. If you go into a place and look at the soil and hold it in your hands, you're either going to find something that crumbles apart like it's from a desert, or is moist and warm and has worms crawling through it. And our goal is to get to the worms crawling through it. And one of the ways we do that is with a shitload of chicken shit.
Lots of manure.
That thankfully Lee relieved us of a few bags of.
That's why my asparagus looks like outrageous right now, as Kirsten just
That's the next battle in Prince Edward County, is getting proper high-speed internet. That's the next one.
I work from home in the tech industry. It's a long-term fight. We've been doing it for 4 years.
Any luck at all?
Yeah, we got 2 internet connections because there's 2 of us who work from home in tech. So we got 2 internet connections for the house, and neither is allowed to touch the other.
Oh, really? Eh? Wow.
But
So, gentlemen, what do you have to say, young men?
I really want to thank everybody for their support on this this whole idea, the county collab. The response to the first one was it was funny when we first released it. I called Ryan right away and I was like, oh well, we sold 4. It's a success, and it just kept going and going and going, and we were just dumbfounded about that it was actually going to be that big of a success. And the second one is doing quite well as well. So I really look forward to the next one.
yeah,
I remember quickly in a panic in mid-March, we closed down our retail store, and we said, our retail store is closed. We have 2 things we need to figure out. The first thing we need to figure out is, we at Fieldbird, we have a staff of about 7 people between the farm and the cidery and the retail space. And we said, we need to make sure that all of them know that they have a job. And then we need to spend the week after that figuring out how we're going to pay them. So we kind of stumbled into online sales. And it was in this in-between time after Nicole and I had committed that we weren't going to let any of our staff go. But we had yet to figure out how we were going to make any sales because we had no online presence. Lee called me. I was sitting in my now basement office, which was our guest bedroom. And he goes, I think we should get a couple county wineries together and do a mix pack. And I was like, I think I saw rules for this in the AGCO guidebook I just read. I was like, I'm in. Whatever you need, I'm in. I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do anyway, so I'm in. And then it was a month of dealing with the AGCO, and we were able to pull this together. And it's been so.
Ryan, but it's temporary, isn't it?
No, so it's the way we're doing it. We're what I'm going to say manipulating a rule. It's called a gift pack exception.
Right.
So wineries are allowed to sell gift packs, and we just are selling them entirely online instead of as part of staying in our hotel. But we're limited in what it can include, how many people can be involved, timeline for it. There's 9 different rules we have to follow, and we scraped by on all 9. And the AGCO was incredibly helpful to us of being
Next one we added the 10th and 11th rule because we're doing the DIY where everybody's going to be fermenting themselves, and so that was
oh yeah
as well, yeah. So but we managed it. So you guys are going to be making cider at home, but that was a feat as well.
So they've been really helpful to us, but mostly the thing I remember most about this is 2 phone calls with Lee. The first one being of him saying, I got this idea that we should get some wineries together, and me just willing to jump at any idea that could keep us together. And then the second phone call, when we released it, I called Lee and I said, all right, it's live now. I'll let you know if we sell any. And 5 minutes later, Lee called me. He's like, have we sold one yet? I was like, I think we sold 6 already. And then it just spiraled from there.
But
and
that's an example of what I mean by kind of an online store that our customers, like Karina or Linda Morrison, she could buy a pack with, first of all, different type of wine. One was a cider wine, but different wineries. You know what I'm saying? So I like that ability. I think it's a great idea allowing consumers to be able to buy all in one package wines from different wineries. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I really do.
And then
the other, the same day that we released it, at the time I was borrowing a lot of stuff off Ryan.
I lost them.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And you lost me?
Oh, there
Yeah,
you're
for
back.
a second.
Oh, okay. And Ryan actually jumped out of his pickup truck to chase me down in mine. He's like, "There's another one!"
anyways, thank you everybody for your support of this. It's been like
Thank you very much.
Great idea, guys.
truly blew us away.
Yeah.
We were excited if one person bought in and over 30 did. So you have no idea how appreciative we are of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Thank you. And thank you, Jay.
Yes, thank you, Jay.
Jay,
My pleasure, guys. Thank
you for hosting
for
this.
including me.
This is fantastic. I think you're onto something. You're going to have to push the other wineries.
Thanks, you guys. Let us know how we can help, eh?
Yeah. Oh,
I actually have some labeling to do, Linda, so you can come by anytime.
okay. Hey.
You got it.
That's funny.
I'm just like popping it.
All right.
Okay, guys.
We're all good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you everybody.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
I
Bye.
love you.
All you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Lee,
Bye.
I love you.
Thank you.
Hey, what about me?
I said it already. Well, say it again.
Okay. Okay. I love you guys too. Have a good one. Bye. Bye.
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.